Welcome to the Tech Panel.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The podcast where tech minds meet.
Oh, hey, before we get started today, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell.
Welcome to the Tech Panel, where we dive into the latest innovations, trends, and game changers shaping the world of business and technology. We're your hosts. I'm Sarah Bowers.
And I'm Arvin.
And today we're diving into something every business struggles with: broken processes, wasted time, and disconnected systems.
Our guest, Mark Layzelle, is the co-founder and head of experience at Day One Software, where he helps companies streamline their workflows, connect their tools, and stop losing time and money to inefficiency. With a background in Lean Six Sigma and business transformation, he's seen firsthand why so many businesses fail when trying to evolve, and more importantly, how to fix it.
So how do you build systems that actually work together? What's the key to making transformation stick? And how can businesses recover wasted time and money? Let's get into it. Mark, welcome to the Tech Panel.
Thank you for having me.
Now, your experience is huge. I mean, you've worked for some of the largest global companies on transformation strategy. You've started your own consultancy and now created Day One Software. I really want to know more about how you got here. So tell us where it all started.
Yeah, right. So look, I think in my consulting work over the last 5 years, I've seen a common problem playing out within the professional services space. For most professional services firms, there's this broken end-to-end value stream or operational process. And, you know, I'd been doing a bit of work with my co-founder. I'd been doing a bit of subcontracting work for his prior business. And in his business, they had built this prototype model of how to connect all of the stages of a standard professional services firm. So if you think up front, you've got sort of a CRM and some sort of lead management tool. It moves through proposal phase. Then you have to actually deliver on the proposal that's been signed. And finally, you've got to bill the customer for that. Now, in watching how this tool worked for them, I could see a massive opportunity for how this could be used across all professional services firms. So when James sold his prior business, we decided it was the right time to take this prototype tool that they'd used and try to build it sort of industrial strength for the broader professional services businesses and industry.
Yeah, great. So you, I guess, saw these issues in most companies,
Yeah.
and you've built this product. Who's it for? Is it for large businesses, medium? Is it anyone?
Look, it is for anyone.
Yeah.
But I think the sweet spot is definitely small to medium-sized enterprises. I think the challenge that they face is, first of all, they don't have the tech budgets of the big end of town. So it's really hard for them to ever find the funding to build out their own custom software. A lot of the offerings today in the market are very sort of functional based. So you'll pick a piece of software to do one function in that broader end-to-end sort of operational flow. So for us, it's very much medium-sized organizations who are looking to scale. They're the sweet spot, right? Because today they are very reliant on humans to move information between each of these functional pieces of software. You've got a CRM, great. Then we have to take information out of that CRM, plug it into some sort of proposal tool, or worse still, Word documents, spreadsheets, right, to create a proposal. Then that proposal gets thrown over the walled garden to a delivery team who then has to make sense of how they're going to actually execute on this. Often it's a creative project manager coming up with all sorts of different budgets in Excel sheets and tracking tools, etc. And then finally, we have to capture that information and get it out for billing. And that is all highly manual, particularly in that medium-sized enterprise.
Sure. That makes sense. I think the unique offering here is what you're sort of describing is, as you described, an indent solution. I think the unique value add there is that most of these businesses have no idea what those steps actually look like. They sort of start, they say, I have a proposal, I need to sell something. Okay, I need sales software. They go buy the sales software. Then they sell it and they're like, okay, now I need to get this to like my implementation team. Great. How do I connect this to whatever? And you're sort of already scheduled all the various services into a single product, which makes it a little bit easier for people to tangibly understand what does the end-to-end process look like.
Yep.
And then you said you've partnered with some of the other really big names in the market already to plug the gaps.
Correct.
All right. So that's another really, I think, special thing that you're offering here, which is You're not creating unique solutions here where everyone's trying to be, gold at everything or silver at everything, I should say, and gold at nothing. You're connecting from all the gold products out there in the market. You're just sort of connecting it all and pre-packaging it and saying, if you want to run your business, here's how everyone's doing it these days.
You're exactly right, Arvin. Yeah, I think, shout out to some of the functional bits of software out there, right? Some of it is really, really clever and fantastic software. I think the problem is that this software gets sold with a potential benefit to a lot of organizations, but that benefit doesn't actually get realized until you've done the plugging together of all of the different bits, right? So I can do this little slither of my value stream really, really effectively, but then I rely on someone to manually make sense of that information, take it out, translate it, put it into the next bit of software or the next document or whatever it is to move it along that value stream. So, we were very deliberate in not trying to recreate bits of software that are exceptional already. So we are built on the Salesforce platform and can sell either as an ISV product. So if you already have Salesforce, we can plug that on top, or an OEM product where we bundle the platform within that. But then we also partner with PDF Butler, which is a really great document generation and e-signature tool. We don't want to try to build those things, right? Because other people have done it really well. So we felt like partnership was the right way to go. But then all those other elements of that value stream, we felt like we could either do something that was unique or better than potentially the other competitors in the market. And that's where we've gone and built our own sort of proprietary code and functionality.
I love that because so many people have thought to themselves, I'm going to start my own business. And they buy all the name brand products out there. And then they're like, cool, all right. What do I do next? Like, there's no instructions for anyone in the world that says, you're starting your business. This is what you need to do. Get this one, connect it to this. This is how you connect it. You've already got that.
Yeah.
Right.
Or just those little workflows in between. It's very manual.
That's
you're automating them. It makes sense. I'd love to hear like a real life example or a case study. So talk us through, an example of how someone is using the current software out there and then yours as well, and step us through that.
Look, one of our first customers is seeing some really huge benefits right now, particularly in the back end of the process. So, we've talked quite a bit upfront around taking a lead and getting a proposal, getting that signed, delivering a service. But what gets hidden, and often it's sort of thrown to the finance administrative team, at the back of the office there, is all the work that is done to then bill these people, bill them accurately, don't leave revenue on the table, which, studies have shown 5 to 10% of revenue gets left on the table in the professional services industry, right? That's simply because we didn't track it, or someone has overserviced and done 8 hours worth of work, but only put 6 in for billable time, etc. And then for many organizations, these tools, like we've spoken about, they're not connected. So somebody has to take spreadsheets, pump them into Xero or whatever your accounting platform is to then bill these people. Often that month end, let's say it's a monthly billing cycle, that month end close can take upwards of 10 days for some of these organizations. So for our first customer, in fact, they've taken that month end closing period from upwards of 10 days down to less than a day. And that's simply because we're always tracking as you go. You're working in this tool to deliver. So we can very easily get that time at point of execution rather than someone taking a note and at the end of the day going to another piece of software to punch in their time cards. And then with automation engines and an ability to customize how you want to bill, each client often asks different things. They want different line levels on their invoice. That becomes very complicated and manual for most organizations. We can set that up at the point of proposal so that is an automated engine that just pumps out these invoices ready for review or some sort of approval process and can go out to customers. So that, they are literally closing their books less than 5 days now. So, effort-wise, massive reductions and just the ability to know, what did I do last month? What was my revenue? What were my costs? They get a really quick, very transparent view of what that is.
So as an example, if can you tell me like what they might be using? So they might have a Salesforce CRM, but then maybe is it like a Monday.com or something like that to kind of, do their project management and their workflows and their timesheet tracking and then Xero? Like what
So
sort of
look,
stuff's
the
out there?
standard stack we see is, so this customer in particular, they were using Workflow Max, which was our old Xero product. For many of our customers, it's Pipedrive. They've already got Salesforce, but it's not really set up with an operational view. It's just a CRM.
Wait, people are starting with Salesforce?
Some people are starting with Salesforce, correct.
First car's a Ferrari. I mean, why not?
Yeah, well, exactly right. Exactly. We see a lot of HubSpot as well, right? So the CRM, it's got its little piece up the front. Then proposals, look. Honestly, most of these organizations are doing it in Word and spreadsheets, right? They've got a price list in a spreadsheet. They'll do some calculations in another tab. They'll get all of that and transfer it
Copy
over
and paste into the pretty
go and get an old template or an old contract that we think we can rework. It's fraught with danger just around pricing alone. And then just the manual amount of work that goes into this. Proposals take days and days and days for some organizations to do. There are other products out there that do proposal management, but again, they're very sort of isolated. And then when you get into the delivery side of things, wow, there's plenty, right? Your Monday.com, Jira, Teamwork, plus many others, right? And that can be different within an organization, right? So different if you've got a multi-business unit or multi-department organization, each department might be doing things differently. This team's using Teamwork, this team's using Trello, this team's using Jira, right? And so how do you get some sort of oversight as an executive or a partner or a business unit manager? Like, I can't compare apples with apples anymore. And then they have to move into timesheeting tools. And again, that you've got many timesheeting tools. Some of those that I just mentioned have timesheeting elements. But there's this disconnect from what I promised a customer and we signed versus what's been set up here. The budgets all need to be manually tracked because often that's not flowing through to the next set of tools. So how do I know whether I'm blowing budget? How do I know whether I've got budget left to use that I could potentially do some extra work for the customer to exhaust that budget? And then it gets pumped out into often spreadsheets to be passed to, like I said before, an admin team that then go and punch this stuff out in the accounting software. So look, there's a lot of tools. There's a myriad of tools that they're using. And for us, it's about saying, well, how do we have one central source of data, use automation where it makes sense? So things like invoicing engines, timesheet approvals, just people's standard working day, like having that information readily available to know, well, this employee works 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, or what becomes even more complicated for organizations are when they're not full-time. And how do I know when I can schedule them, what they're available to work? So we have lots of automation around the ability to carefully identify who the person is with the right skill set to then deploy them to a project or an engagement, etc.
Do you have any examples of customers you've worked with where you immediately think to yourself, like, this is a perfect customer where they had none of these automations and this is the amount of time that they were wasting or dollar values being lost in an organization? I always try to think to myself, what we're talking about for a lot of businesses, so hypothetical. They're not in the space where they can think to themselves, oh, I waste like 2 hours a week. Like, what does that even mean to me as a business owner if I lose 2 hours a week? Or how much are other businesses losing right now? And what can you actually tangibly provide them if they were to leverage a system like yours?
Yeah, so look, it's early days for us, Alvin. The product was just deployed in July last year. We're actually going through the process of studying our customer base right now to get some good numbers on that. But I can give sort of some less scientific numbers at this stage around what they're saving. So we know that in the proposal phase, as I said before, that could take days and days to get a proposal out. And often required a lot of bouncing around the organization. The CFO's got to sign off on this discount and this executive needs to check over it to make sure that it's correct. We've got templated contractuals or templated proposals, should I say, that enable you with a button click, if you have a repeatable type proposal, which most of these professional services firms do, right? Like there is a structure and a product type that they are selling to a customer. We can do that with a button click, right? So you can literally button click and have the entire structure of this thing, the different phases of the project, what's being delivered, the tasks required to deliver on those scope items within hours, right? So that can take you from 3 or 4 days to hours. It then has intelligent approval mechanisms within the tool so that if you've got delegated authorities, for instance, where something over a certain dollar amount needs to go up to a higher to sign off, that's just automatically triggered in the system before you can send it off for signing. Document generation and e-signature, right? Like we use that a bit today and it's becoming more and more popular, but you'd be surprised how many are still wet signatures. Literally sending this off, someone has to print it out, sign it, scan it, send it back, and then it doesn't get filed. Then it gets lost or kept on somebody's desktop and there's no
in an email
record, centralized record of that, right? So therein will save you a day or two, right? Because normally, and in my own experience, you need to chase your client for a couple of days to get this signature. They've given you the verbals and said it's all good, but then to get them to print it out, to sign it, to get it back, that can take a couple of days, right? So that delays the start. That delays effectively earning revenue, right? So there's another sort of key point that we see big savings in time. Having everybody in the one place to deliver then. So we have Kanban boards, Gantt charts, all of the tools you would need to deliver a project, whether it's agile, waterfall style project methodology. We've got that covered. And then we have all of our tickets or tasks that people physically pick up within these boards and work and can time log in there. So you're saving people time. It may not be a lot, but you're saving people time every day in not having to take notes, not having to remember to go in end of day, end of week, or when your boss harasses you to do your timesheet. That can be done there and then in the tool to say, this is the time that I've done. Now, that might only be 15 minutes, but that's across your entire workforce, right? Sure. Every single day. And then the big bit there that it saves you is the leakage, the revenue leakage, right? Where we spoke about that before. 5 to 10% of revenue gets left on the table because people just don't bill it properly or put it into the system. And then finally, look, the big one that we're seeing that we do have quite a bit of quantification around now is the invoice generation, the invoice approvals, the sending of those invoices. And we have a 2-way integration with accounting platforms. So we can then send it, pass it to the accounting platform. So nothing gets done in the accounting platform anymore as far as invoicing. It's all done within our engine, but it passes all those line level details to the accounting platform with all the GL codes, sends it to the right chart of accounts, and can then circle back to say, was this thing paid or not? So we can then, in project status reports or whatever, very easily surface for a client, you've got 3 bills, you've paid 1, you've got 2 overdue, you've got another one about to come. So that saves finance teams a heap of time. I've worn a project manager cap in the past. In a smaller to medium-sized professional services firm, that task either goes to a finance person, an accounts person, or the project manager. There's so much wasted time in chasing up collections on bills that aren't paid. That's not even what I'm here to do, right? I'm here to deliver a service, but now I'm having to harass you for payment of the bills that we've sent you. So there's some big savings. Look, in a couple of months' time, if you'd asked me that question, I'd have some hard numbers for you, Arvin. But yeah, right now we're going through that process, being sort of a year and 9 months into the product.
I mean, to me, it's clear to see the return on investment because you can see the time saved.
Correct.
And especially if you're tracking, your timesheet tracking and tracking hours and things like that, which I know a lot of businesses, are moving towards, just really, figuring out how long everyone is spending on each task, and you've got that data. I mean, it's really obvious to see it saves time. Time is money.
Yep.
But where can those businesses be then using that time? Are you sort of advising on how they can be better using that time then, rather than, I guess, if it saves admin time, is it then a job that's out of that business where they save money, or are they then going to use that time to generate more sales?
Look, I think it largely depends on the business, the state of the business, what their kind of short to medium term goals are as well. So an organization that's growing, they can very easily redeploy that person to something that's more value added, right? At the end of the day, the whole goal of Lean Six Sigma and Lean in particular is not about taking people out of the equation. It's about getting rid of low value work. And low value work, there's a lot of studies that show that actually has a direct impact on people's, the employee engagement and interest in their job. If I'm doing something that I'm like, man, a machine could do this, you don't feel very valued and you don't feel excited to come to work, right? So the point of it really is to free people up from those sort of somewhat repetitive, monotonous manual tasks to redeploy them to something that's more valuable for the customer. So if you're growing, then there's a very good chance you can redeploy those people. It's probably not popular, but if you're struggling and looking for cost out, then you know what decision they're probably going to make. And it's unfortunate, but again, it's about business survival. And these are the decisions that every business at some point has to make. So, I'd like to say that it's always about redeployment and, nice, happy, fluffy things. But the reality is some organizations will take that as an opportunity to cost cut. And that will be because of their strategic direction at that point.
And I think that's every business is going to go through that as technology and as AI develops. It is taking away those admin tasks and those menial tasks. I love the idea that it creates time for people to be creative and opens up that time to not just be chasing your tail constantly, but actually have time to brainstorm and develop and come up with new ideas and actually work on those. I think that's a huge potential for businesses, because that's something that I think, in all of these workflows, creativity is like, no, we do not have time for that. Like, we need to be efficient.
Correct.
And I think efficiency and creativity are almost like opposites in this world.
They're definitely pulling on the tug. It's the tug of war between those two. Definitely. I think
that opens up opportunity.
We've talked about the admin side, but I think there you kind of touched on something there that I think I haven't really addressed, which is the highly paid professionals who are in the billable world, right? So we've sort of talked about the impact to a lot of these administrative type roles that help support the business. But if you think professional services, these people are highly paid professionals, right? They are there for the purpose of billable hours. And yet you'll find that there's one of two things that happen around all of these manual tasks. Either it takes away from their billable hours per day, let's say 8-hour day, they might be spending an hour a day in various meetings that have been called because we need to understand certain data or help with a proposal, pre-sales, try to make sense of timesheets, invoicing, just doing my own manual work. Or if it isn't taking away, it's added on top of the 8 hours and these people are taking it home with them and doing it on their laptops, which is also not a good outcome, right? People need to be able to switch off, shut their computer and go home. So what it affords them is effectively to get them back to what they do best. And that gives them time to do really good service, to be creative, to, provide to their customers more than what they were able to today.
Focus on their
they're
niche skill set, their experience rather than the things that they just have to do as part of the job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I work with plenty of staff at our company, and the unfortunate truth of running a company is that you're going to have some sort of monotonous task that's repetitive, that absolutely should be automated. And it's something where people got to chase things down. And the second you have any of these tasks, as small and inconsequential as it may seem at face value, whenever you have something else in your business where there's a problem, say, we didn't chase it up with the customer, it led to bad feedback, you always wonder yourself, how did that happen? Well, if you had an hour back in their day for every single one of these people, they probably could have addressed that or prevented that problem from occurring.
Correct.
People always think to themselves, if I had all this time, I could just start a new project. And it's like, it doesn't have to be pie in the sky. You don't have to be a creator with all your time. You could just be maximizing the potential out of your staff on the existing processes.
Exactly.
Right. And I think a lot of people take that for granted. And, I've had these exercises with other businesses as well. You're like, you should buy this piece of software because it'll give you so much time. And they're like, what do I need that time for? And it's like, I have no idea why I have to explain this to you. Everyone sort of thinks to themselves, we're good. You know what I mean? But you can never point to any business and find no cracks in the way that things are running. So I'd love to see a company like yours in a system that could put time back in people's day. But I'd also love, more importantly, to be able to provide people tangible examples, right? I think that's the thing that a lot of people struggle with. Businesses, if you say, put time back in your day, they just wonder, what could I do with that time? So I'd be curious to see what you could do in that space. Maybe that's like V2 or something
Yeah,
coming
talk
out.
to you in 6 months' time and
call
you
me
can-
back in 6 months and I'll give you the data,
Exactly
right?
right.
Yeah.
No, but it's really interesting you say that, right? Because there is a little bit of a paradox around that a lot of these organizations are themselves advising businesses on how to be better.
Mhm.
And yet internally, sometimes it's the hamster on the wheel kind of running within their own organization. And these are very, very good, highly skilled organizations that provide excellent services to their customers. But that ability to reflect in and realize that often I'm not operating the way that I advise others to do this. And this spans,
And that's so common. Yeah.
it is scarily common. And look, I've been there myself, right? Where you're so busy because you're chasing billable.
Yeah.
I don't have the time to invest in trying to fix up. I know that it's not working well. I know that it could be better. But I need to chase the next client. I need to chase the next billable hour, right? I've got stuff to do. So you focus on that and you deprioritize then your own business. And I think it only becomes really obvious when you sort of crack that 20, 30, 40 people organization where all of a sudden they're realizing each increment of growth is requiring more and more manual work to make the machine kind of run. And that's, that's definitely something that I've witnessed. I've lived that experience myself. And I know that with a lot of our customers and potential customers, that's definitely the problem. Many of them know that it's not good, but have not taken the time to understand exactly where it's not good and, are just looking for a solution that will help them get there quickly. And the tech first kind of approach isn't always the best approach, right? Just throwing more software at something doesn't really get you the benefits that often you're told you will get. And so there's this element of cynicism, annoyance that I've paid all this money for all this stuff.
Trained everyone on these
Trained
new
everyone
processes.
on these new tools and we're
Yeah.
only 5% better. I thought I'd be 50% better, right? And I think that's really, that's at the core of what we're trying to solve.
Yeah. Well, you touched on it there, but in terms of, day one software, are you tailoring it for each business or is it pretty much a one size fits all approach and then you just at the back end do that? Or how does it work from a client perspective?
So no, definitely not a one size fits all. My background is process. So it's very much built around, process flexibility and the ability to customize and be agile around how you do these processes. So I think one of the problems with throwing software at an organization is, and in my experience and then also a lot of my consulting work, what I've seen is that you're told a benefit that you will achieve, but you will only come close to achieving that if you do it their way. Now, if you go high enough up, and this might be controversial, right? If you take it up to a high enough level, all professional services operate the same. And I know that might be controversial, right? The legal firm will not see themselves the same as the engineering firm and the advertising and PR firm.
Explain a little bit more there.
But they are, right? So if you think of the concept of a widget moving through the value chain, right? It doesn't matter what the service is. At a high enough level, you need to find prospects. You need to get proposals out and line up some sort of product fit with the customer need or prospect need. You need to get that proposal executed. You then need to kind of deliver on that. And then you have to keep like this is a time and material type business, right? It's, there are fixed priced models and we account for that. But if you think most of this is about people's time going into the delivery and being able to track that time, you have to track that and then bill it. Now, I don't care if you're a legal firm or you're an engineering firm or you're a marketing firm or you're an IT services, that's your model, right? Like that ultimately is the high model. But then when you get deeper into the weeds, they will have very logical reasons why that doesn't look the same when you start to go into the lower level process. So the design of our product was, first of all, okay, that top level, that doesn't change, right? That is effectively our value stream that we've created. But we've built a lot of intelligent configuration. It's all configurable. It's something that we will work with you in the implementation stage to understand what is your best process. Now, coming from a Lean Six Sigma background, I'll call out if something's not right.
Sure.
We'll say to you, have you thought about this? Is this really what you want to do? Do you want to have 5 approvals before a deal goes out? That seems like a lot of steps to take. And you'd be surprised. Organizations will go through 3, 4, 5 approvals before a deal goes out. So we'll challenge that. We'll try to help them smooth out the process, make it simpler, more streamlined. But then we can configure that to exactly how you want. If you don't want approvals on your timesheets, fine. If you need approvals and it has to go through some sort of hierarchy, we can do that as well. The whole templating of proposals, well, that's totally customizable, right? That's up to you and how you structure your projects. So at a high level, it's defined, but at that lower level, we can configure all of those things for your needs and for what your vision is for your business. And more importantly, you're not going to get it right all the time. So having that configurability to then say, that's not quite working, and having the intelligence and the data and all the reporting that we can provide you around the bottlenecks enables you to then say, this process is really slow. We need to make it faster. And we can then reconfigure that for you to come up with whatever sort of process changes you want within that. So yeah, it's kind of 2 parts, right? The high level, they're all the same, but then at that lower level, they can look very, very different. And that's where we've got that ability to kind of configure it for your business.
Yeah, so you come in and you consult, you almost like audit and consult with them first on how this will work. You then build it to this specific business and the specific technology that they're already using or that they could be using that will work for them. And then that's all then automated, under this day one banner.
Correct.
Yeah. Do you then work with them on that?
Yeah, definitely.
Moving forward, and you tweak and you stay with them. How long does that normally take? Or are you constantly with them?
We do offer a support model, which we highly recommend our customers take if you wanted, particularly if you're interested in that continuous improvement, continuous refinement. But even with a standard implementation, right, we will have a period of hypercare where we're checking in over, not just week 1, right? What happens in week 1? People are just trying to make sense of a system so we will check in with them periodically over the next few months to see what can be done. Is this working? Is this not working? So look, we really, particularly because of my background in consulting, we don't want to be a standard software company where we take your money and run, right? And no disrespect, but for a lot of organizations that works, right? It's a functional piece of software. I've given it to you.
It does job.
It does the job. Okay, we don't need to check in with you again because we are taking that end-to-end view of your organization. We sort of have to partner with you, right? We can't just give you something and say, all right, well done, guys. Thanks for buying our software. Hope it all works for you. We do need to be very active in checking in. So look, it's definitely a part of my role in particular in the business to work closely with the organizations to see what's working, what's not working, what would you like to change. And we've thankfully built that sort of intelligence and that configuration into the system that we can make those changes quite easily.
Yeah, great.
I've got a question for you, but we'll have to follow it up after we answer this one. So we're giving our users the ability to raise questions. We go into our shows and feel free to email us if you have a question. But they've asked, Lean Six Sigma is all about efficiency. So tell us, what's the most ridiculously inefficient thing you secretly refuse to stop doing?
That I refuse to stop doing. Oh, this is a stitch up. Look, I think the big thing that my area of study was economics, right? So I love a spreadsheet. Right? And I love to build out.
To me.
Yeah. I'm talking real dirty now. And I love to build out models and run my own statistics and things. So this is terrible. I shouldn't be saying this, but I still love crunching numbers in Excel. Even if the numbers are there for me, I will do additional things in Excel. And so like my business partner is often trying to take the outputs of my models and building it in so that eventually I can say goodbye to Excel. But
there's something nice about figuring it out or doing it yourself, the process
math,
or something.
Right?
Yeah, I get that as well.
I definitely love sitting there and crunching numbers in Excel, even though it's probably not adding a great deal of value. It's just pleasure. It's a sick, perverted pleasure of mine, right?
So what I was going to say a second ago was you're obviously working in a very intimate space of professional services companies,
Yes.
which is the SMB space, right? And I'm sure a lot of us out there listening probably agree with this statement that in that space, they often think that their edge is the human element of whatever services that they're offering. Do you feel that's a friction point that you're often dealing with, trying to introduce something that could potentially automate someone out of a task or responsibility they have? I know I deal with this constantly, where I speak with people and they're always thinking to themselves, like, I don't want to automate that process. I like doing this. And I wonder, is that just our own personal biases or our own internal fears? What's your experience trying to automate people's businesses?
Look, I've been doing process improvement for just shy of 20 years now. So even long before day one came along, I've been dealing with this exact problem, right? That any kind of simplification, automation, and more recently, AI, conversation around AI, will invoke a fear, a real fear. And any change will invoke a fear, right? Like human nature and psychology, it will invoke a fear. But particularly if it is to do with my job, then there is that natural fear that am I being slowly being made redundant, or, what is my value to the organization? The thing I think with where we're targeting with day one and professional services in particular is we don't at any point in time pretend to know what the service is that you're delivering, right? If you're in engineering services, well, I'm not an engineer, right? If you're a legal professional, well, I'm not a lawyer, right? That's the part of the human interaction that's actually valued and that a customer pays for, not the timesheeting, not the proposal delivery, the development. So we very deliberately take these tasks that are behind the scenes, right? Like I talked about the hamster on the wheel before. These are the hamster on the wheel kind of tasks within the organization, with the whole goal of getting you back that time to spend with your customer to do a better job, do more work, find new projects, make more money, whatever it might be. So I think that the friction is not as great in our world because a lot of what we're doing is actually getting these people back to what they were hired to do.
Sure.
There will be impacts to some administrative groups that, will naturally create some fear for them. And it will depend on, the organization and what their views are on moving forward. But realistically, for the vast population of the professionals who are billable employees of this organization, there's not a great deal of resistance because they were already somewhat frustrated. And for many of them, this was work they were doing after they'd gone home. Right? It wasn't in their 8-hour day. It was in their 9th or 10th or 11th hour of the day, right? That they were doing all of these admin things and checking proposals, approving timesheets, approving invoices. So, look, we haven't had a lot of pushback, but it really will depend on the organization. And if they've got 20 admin people, well, I'm sure it will be a very different conversation with that organization. And there will probably be a lot more friction and noise than an organization that runs with 2, 3, 4 admin people, right? They can probably redeploy them to other things quite easily.
So let me reconfigure that question. The other version of objections that I deal with, I'm sure you have as well, is it seems to be working for us. Why do we need to change it if it looks like it's good?
It's just people being adverse to change. Like,
Yeah.
like a lot of people don't like change. Some of us do. I like it. You like
Love it.
You probably love
I
it
love
because
it.
you're always
I
improving.
love it.
Yeah, me too. It's like, this is great. But a lot of people don't.
Yep.
So there's probably just that pushback on change, right, as
Yep.
well.
Absolutely.
But I do get that fear of like, you completely understand where people come from in, even if Agile's coming in and it's like, we're getting retrained in this way to do things more efficiently. Anytime the word efficiently is used, and it seems to be this efficiency economy now, let's do things more efficiently. It either means, okay, great, I get less admin tasks, but I'll probably have to take on another client. I'll be servicing 2 clients now because I can bill them double, or I've got more time in my day, so I'll be taking on more work. It's never going to be that person is working less. So,
No.
you know what I
no.
mean?
That's exactly right.
There's always going to be that fear, no matter what it is.
Correct.
But AI and tech does seem to have this, and this efficiency economy, I guess, does have that fear in any business.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. And I think for the people impacted by this stuff, it's a valid fear, right? It's something that potentially they might have to take on a new workload and they don't know what that will be, whether it's actually going to be better than today or, okay, I don't have admin tasks, but now I've got a whole second client.
Yeah.
And I'm still working 11 or 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
But to some degree, there's another market force here that kind of is mitigating, particularly for executives within professional services firms, mitigating that fear or that friction that you would see. And that's the fact that things like AI are making the whole market so much more competitive, right? Price is now becoming quite a sensitive sort of area for professional services. There's, I think, 16,000 odd small and medium-sized professional services firms in Australia, all trying to nip at the heels at the big end of town.
Mm-hmm.
And the big end of town sometimes has a bit of a stench about it these days as well. So there's this unusual market force where this group here now has been given the opportunity to go for deals that maybe they were never considered for in the past. And there's competition that's playing out. So you talk to CFOs and they're worried about margins. They're worried about price control and making sure that we're pricing things appropriately, and that, sales teams that hand out discounts that aren't being really properly managed, and all of a sudden our margin has taken a massive hit. These tools, I think, are seen as ways of strengthening your business, setting yourselves up for the future, and actually enabling you to compete.
Sure.
Right? If you don't play with some of these costs and you don't start actively stripping them out, questions there as to whether you exist in 5 years' time, right? Do you have to sell your business? Do you have to close down? Like, are you able to make the kind of returns that you want to make in your organization? So I think we've got definite headwinds, and there'll always be the headwind of change and people not liking it. But I think there's tailwinds as well for us, that a lot of organizations are now realizing that there is a lot of waste in our business. It's been hidden because we've been making good money in the past. Now there's more competition within the market, and we have to be sharp on price. If we're going to get those deals, we have to be sharp on price. And if you don't want to give up margin, then you're going to have to start addressing that cost line,
Sure.
right?
Obviously, given that you're touching on a wide range of various areas of the business and improvement, what's sort of like the one area you're like, guys, if we're going to pitch this is where you start, because this is where the leaks often occur in the organization. Yeah. Where's like, this is where we focus, or what should other companies be thinking?
Okay, so I'll give you a bit of a view on the way we see our product. We see our product as what we call a hub and spoke product.
Mhm.
And the hub, which will be the answer to your question, is actually the proposal. Everything goes wrong at the proposal, right? So if you think about all the things we've spoken about so far, if you don't get the structure of that right, you don't get the pricing of that right, you don't get the right resources on this project, you don't set reasonable timeframes for when it can be delivered, you don't have a view of what my team's demand is, whether I've got capacity, I'm over capacity, under capacity, can I do this project faster, do I need to slow this down? Everything goes wrong at that point, right? So you have customers who are being told things that you're not delivering.
Sure.
You have delivery teams that aren't quite sure exactly what it is they are supposed to be delivering. You get scope creep, right? Because a customer will very quickly work out that you're not exactly clear on what it is you're delivering, and they will try to squeeze a bit more in every single time. And then you end up with all the invoicing problems that occur as a result of that.
Sure.
Not even then considering the fact that if you don't have this all integrated into a central sort of repository of information, you can't get intelligence and data then after the fact to do retros and work out, where did we go wrong? What's happened? Do we need to allow more time? Have we put too much time into this and we're non-competitive with other competitors in the market, right? So I think for me, the moment of truth in this entire value stream is actually that proposal.
Sure.
You've got to get it right. You've got to get the right structure, level of detail that suits your organization. You've got to get the right people on it. And you've got to have that clearly articulated for your customer to manage the risks of scope creep, et cetera, et cetera. And then by having it all there and all in one system, I can then track this stuff along those lines that I've structured up in the proposal.
It just so happens that you believe the one area that every company should be focusing on is the most complex part. Go figure.
And that's why we're proud
There's
that
so
we
many
spent a
elements to
lot
it.
of time developing and designing
Yeah.
that bit, because we felt like that was where it all fell over, right? And in fact, that's a bit of a gap, even if you look out in the market at some of our competitors, that gap between proposal to delivery is still a bit of a void, right? There's plenty of tools that play in that delivery space, and they're good tools. But that transition from salesperson to what am I selling you to what exactly are we going to deliver you? And that's an interface that sort of should happen between sales and delivery. Doesn't always. You let the salesperson do it all up front, you're going to get a delivery team that aren't real happy.
Yeah.
And if you let the delivery team do it all, then you're probably leaving revenue on the table, because they're going to not necessarily see the opportunities to get the maximum revenue. They're probably not incentivized on revenue, right? They're just about time and scope.
Yep.
So that kind of transition, it breaks down. And it breaks down even with the architecture of a lot of organizations today. That tech architecture just doesn't support that transition between the two teams and then properly tracking that throughout the delivery of the service.
And the reflecting on it is
Reflecting,
that big
yes.
thing.
Yeah, massive.
Because if it seems to be going okay, but you're reflecting on it and you're actually like, yeah, we do need more time on this, or we are undercutting ourselves. Or, hey, we didn't spend that much time on it. Can we go cheaper? Like that reflection and fine tuning those proposals is key.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That's great that you capture all of that. Very interesting.
I'd love for any business out there to just be able to flick a switch and see like how much time they gave customers for free, and then just look at the end of the year, like how many hours were spent multiplied by that dollar value, and just be like probably close to like $100,000 average business that you deal with. And those are like the SMB space. We're not even talking about like
The big end, yeah.
That's exactly right.
Well, that whole pre-sales is a bit of a sinkhole of time for people, right? So we very deliberately built out this concept of customer lifetime value, in which case we ask our salespeople, our delivery people, anyone who is working on the proposal, to actually log their time in sort of a non-billable state as well, so that you've got a really accurate view of what was the true value of this engagement. So, let's give an example. I've got $100,000 deal, so many, hours of work here to get up to that number. But a lot of organizations don't realize you spent $15,000 just trying to get the deal.
Yeah.
Well, the net value of that thing is only $85,000 now, right? And does that meet your margins? Is that appropriate for your business? So having that full view of, well, when I'm doing this pre-sales work, I need a way to be able to capture that. So the concept of customer lifetime value is a really important one in our platform as well, which gives you, again, a bit more of a true view of what is this customer worth? Do I have to spend weeks and weeks and weeks of my time just to get them to a proposal?
Sure.
In which case that has to be netted out of all the work that we've done for them. The revenue part doesn't start from when they sign the contract. It starts from when you first start talking about that contract. And so, there's a lot of little sinkholes in the organization that realistically, if you're not tracking and measuring it, you don't know. You really don't know how much is being lost.
You're playing on some of the parts. My mind goes straight back now to like the psychology of running a sales organization and starting the business, believing that this is what the product is worth, so this is what you should sell it for. And then after that, devaluing by offering countless free services to a customer after that. You're just evaluating yourself, and you're not holding yourself accountable to your own values at the same time.
Exactly.
And how's a customer going to respect you if you don't respect yourself? They're always going to want to pull more out of you. Yeah.
It is so hard as well in a servicing industry as well. That idea of like your hourly rate or your billable hours and things like that, because all of that pre-pitch, pre-sales proposal sort of time has to be built into it. But clients are so, I find in my industry, clients are so picky. Oh, can we get that down? Oh, why does it cost that much? But it's like, because there's so much more to it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It is so hard to actually
They only
to
see front
manage
of
all
shop,
of
right?
that.
They don't see back of shop
an
and what's
hourly
going
rate
on.
for that.
Yeah.
But I am actually pitching this much time to get you there. Yeah, and that's where I think that reflecting and having that data and actually tracking it. In terms of time tracking, how does day one actually do that in automations? Does it look at the applications you're in? Is it like that sort of time tracking? How does it work?
No, because the work that, like the professional services industry is vast, and we've talked about the different subsegments, and there's many, many more that sit within that group. What we have done right now is built out, I guess, a parent-child structure. So if you think you've got a contract, you've then got multiple phases within any sort of project that you're doing. It might be kickoff and initiation, design, deliver, etc. And then within those, there will be key sort of deliverables, things that I will outputs, let's say, that I will give you as part of each of those phases. And those outputs will then have a series of tasks, more micro level things that need to be done to deliver those. We've then built out that structure, and you can visualize it with Kanban boards or whatever, or Gantt charts, however you like to operate, where we will then enable you to assign that work to your team. So on some of these jobs, it's one person, it's easy, right? But for particularly in technology space, you might have 2-3 devs, a project manager. There's different tasks and responsibilities in a small group. You can allocate those, and we've got tools to help you with that resourcing to see what people's availability is, what they can do. And then while they're doing those tasks, we can very easily track the time. So, they can either manually put it in against the card or the task, or we can automate that. But the problem with that is, unless you are then opening it, looking at it, keeping that thing open, how do we get a real register of the time that's being done on this particular task? Now, AI offers some really cool possibilities in the future for us, and it's definitely, we're doing a lot of research in that AI space around how we can use that. But right now, it's more about streamlining than automation when it comes to that time tracking. It's trying to get people to track their time at the moment that they're doing the work.
Sure.
In one application.
One place.
So you don't have to go back to Jira or Monday or whatever else it is, or Trello, and track
and
it in that.
And then go, I'm done this task. I've done this task.
And then go tick that off on the other task. Yeah.
I've got to go
Which
to another piece of software.
With, and then and then I don't track it. Or then at the end of the day, oh fuck, I have to put that in there. And
Well,
so
or if you're like
one,
me, I've got this dirty notebook of all these little
things
that I've written down.
Yeah.
And then come end of week, I have to sit there and plug it all in.
Which is manual and ridiculous, right?
Yeah,
and it
definitely.
adds, that's what I found when technology gets implemented and they think it's going to be quicker. But I'm spending all this time actually tracking. I've spent like 20 minutes trying to track my time. Like, where'd that time go? Should I add another column in there to be like 20 minutes of time tracking?
And you can see then with that exact example you've given where the revenue leakage comes in then, right?
Yeah.
I didn't make a note of that task today. I didn't make it, or I put down 4 hours and then I got a phone call and I went back and I did another 2 hours on it, but I forgot to go and add the 2 hours in there. There's 2 hours gone. And so that just creeps in when you've got people jumping between systems.
Yeah.
So that's really how we've addressed it now. Future versions will look for more intelligent ways that potentially can use AI or, counters, right? I've picked up the task, I click a clock, and we've got that feature,
I was
right?
going to say you'd have that in there already,
We've got
right?
that in there now. But
so in your task, in that workflow, you're in that, you tick it on, hit time track, you've got to make sure you tick it off. And
that's the issue, right? Is that there's still some element of input from a human right now to do that accurately. So, but I think with that structure, by taking it down to that micro level, you're not taking a guesstimate at a more macro kind of level where you're like, I think I did 4.5 hours today. Well, I can track that by each of these individual tasks. And if I have to add new tasks after the project is started, that's fine. You can add a new task. You can start tracking that as well. And because it's all got that hierarchy, it will then just flow up to the appropriate budgets.
And then, so that is similar to any other sort of workflow software. That's where your customized software is in there. So when that replaces something else, but then it still talks to your CRM and it still talks to your accounting, your
Correct.
Xero. So yours is that kind of middle ground.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it sounds like obviously it's great for small and medium business. What about smaller, like how small can you go with something like this? Or is it?
Look, I think 15 people is probably the minimum size where you would actually see real benefit. Under that, the administrative stuff gets hidden quite a bit. And often it's small enough that a leader of that business probably has a pretty good idea of everything that's going on and every project that's underway. And, in 15 people businesses, you're probably not doing large projects with multiple people working on it, all taking different responsibilities. It's often more of a one-to-one or maybe two people working on a job. So the tracking becomes a bit easier. Does it mean that they're losing insights? Yes, it definitely does. Does it mean that they're wasting time? Absolutely. But it's all a scale thing, right? It just gets hidden and it's not as noticeable. It's really as you're trying to break into that small to medium size, and definitely as you're approaching 50, this stuff is actually becoming a really big obstacle to improving, getting bigger deals. You're noticing now that you have multiple people working in administrative functions, or your highly paid professionals are spending inordinate amounts of time in administrative tasks. So that for us is really the sweet spot. But I'd say 15 is probably the minimum before you'd start to really notice the benefits of the software.
Are there any systems that you have worked with, trying to partner with, let's say, that you've come across and you're just like, this is not the kind of tool I'd be recommending to other companies? Have you been burned by any of the tools that you've tried to partner with?
No, I think we're early enough and fresh enough in our journey that we haven't had that experience yet. Our partners have been really good. We only partner with two other software vendors, right? Like behemoth being Salesforce, and then a really cool crew out of Belgium, which I said before, PDF Butler. And they're very innovative in their sort of doc generation and e-signature functionality. They've actually got a really cool tool that it enables you to connect through to your SharePoint or your Google Drive. So filing no longer becomes an issue. We talked about earlier people leaving things on their desktop and then leaving the business and we've got no record of a contract. This will automatically file those things into your existing structure that you got there, whether it's SharePoint. So we've been really lucky. They've both been really accommodating and helpful. As we sort of start to look at other bits of functionality, and a lot of this will be customer-led. So as customers are telling us that there's other bits of functionality that they need to preserve in the new world that is not addressed by ours. So HR systems is probably a really good one. Again, call me in 6 months and we can see whether we've had experience there. But look, we've got a great integrator as part of our team. We will integrate with anything really. And we don't intend to try and consume all functionality. So there's a lot of stuff like HR, supply chain and warehousing. If you do happen to have quite an inventory of things, I don't want to get into supply chain software, right? We will look at how we integrate that in. So look, we're still fresh and smiling. We haven't been burnt by anyone yet.
In terms of the finance software, is it mainly Xero that you're working with? Or
Xero is our primary right now. And for this market that we're looking at, it is the sort of the primary software in Australia and New Zealand. We know that QuickBooks is also fairly popular here, but then you get the sort of the big end of town software. And particularly if we start doing business with 200, 500,000 plus employee businesses, that we'll look at that. But a lot of the software, again, no offense to accounting platforms, but they do operate in a very similar way, right? It's really comes down to the UI, particularly for what we're doing. We're only owning the invoice generation and the calculation side of it. We're not trying to manage your books and chart of accounts and those things. We'll leave that to the accounting platform. So we just need to be able to very intelligently integrate with your chart of accounts, your GL codes, push things in appropriately.
Move the data from here to here to here.
Sync up accounts, right? So that's a big one. A classic one we see is accounting platforms having completely different company information to CRMs. We could do that. We can intelligently sync between those two bits of software. So look, for us, we're not in any way fearful of having to integrate with other accounting platforms, sort of bigger end of town accounting platforms. But right now, Xero is definitely the key one. And we've got a really good application to do that.
Yep. You've obviously worked many years, over a decade, in business transformation. Do any specific examples come to mind when you harken back into those days where you're like, from a digital transformation perspective, these are either the industries or the types of companies that it's just a nightmare that how far along they are in that process. I know I have a perspective that construction was always like the struggling industry out there when it comes to digital transformation. Who do you think, from your perspective, are the ones that are just like not getting it?
I'm going to give a really controversial answer here and say all of them. So there's a lot of research that looks at business transformation and digital transformation. So Kotter, who's sort of the father of change management, over 30 years ago said 70% of big change fails. That number has rung true over the last 3 decades. So McKinsey, Boston Consulting have all done their own sort of research, and it comes anywhere from 70 to 85% of digital transformations fail badly.
Yeah. Wow.
And there's a number of factors at the core of that, but so it starts with leadership and the ability to manage change. And we talked about the psychology of change before and how that, that gets borne out within an organization. So that's really critical, right? If you've got a leader who's not 100%, in fact, if you don't have a C-suite of people who are all 100% on board, there's a good chance that transformation will not work.
And can communicate that, actually.
Can
and
communicate is the
inspire
most
everyone else
important
to
part.
get on board with that. Like, that's the big thing. They could be for
Absolutely.
it, but they have to sell it to everyone else in a very positive way.
Absolutely, right? I think the next big one, which is very close to my heart, is this complete lack of understanding of what my actual process is. There's an ideation around what I think it is. There's a belief that what somebody documented 5 years ago is still the way that we do it today. And in many circumstances, there is nothing documented at all.
Yep.
And that is not setting yourself up for success.
Yep.
So you need to actually really know how this thing is being done today. And to do that, you need your frontline staff to tell you. No manager will tell you what's going on. When I used to do a lot of workshopping for lean stuff in particular, I deliberately asked managers to sort of step back in these workshops. I didn't want to hear from them. I wanted to hear from the person who actually does the job. You tell me, what do you do? And the look of shock on many of these managers' faces that this is not what they thought. Like, it's a realization point all of a sudden that, oh, shit, I thought we were doing it this way.
Yep.
Right? So, well, that person's the one making the decision about what we're going to do. And yet they think we do it this way, but this is the way that we do it. So you can see now there's this massive disconnect. And then I think the more recently, when we talk about like less so about business transformation and more so digital transformation, there's this technology first kind of view that software will solve every problem. Software will solve my problem.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a leader that can clearly communicate the why are we changing, you don't have a basis with which to make decisions because you don't really understand your process. And these same leaders that we're talking about are the ones ultimately who make the decisions about where we're going. And then you have a vendor who comes and sells you the dream and says that you're going to get these benefits, but wait a minute, you're going to have to do it our way, not your way. Mm-hmm. No surprise that 3/4 of these digital transformations never hit the expected benefits and are deemed failures, right? But if you ask the exec teams, and that's what they've done, they've surveyed all these executive teams, it's a failure 3/4 of the time. So I think if you can then take those 3 sort of root causes and tip them on the head and say, well, how do I address each of those 3 things? Then transformation can be a bit more reliably delivered. Yeah. But no, back to your original question, I don't think that there is. And I've seen these same problems in ASX 50 companies as I have in, startup, scale up businesses across every industry, not just professional services. So sorry for the scary stats there.
Do you have a solution for it? Do you have a solution, or have you, what works the best? Like, is there a certain model? Like, I know you're quite, you've referenced lean, but is it agile? Like, what is, anything
Look,
else?
I think I'm Lean Six Sigma trained. I was a black belt in banking for many years as a Lean Six Sigma practitioner. I do have a passion for process first, and I think that is a really important starting point, is just know your process. You need to know what is the experience of your customers, what is the experience of your staff, What do people value? What do people not value? Where is there just inherent waste, like manual tasks we've talked about a lot. There's this concept in professional services of overproduction, which is all over-servicing, right? Again, it's kind of the idea of I do extra work for you, I forget to bill it, and then it doesn't get billed. Poor decision-making or waiting because I don't have the information, so somebody's got to collate it and I have to wait. But these things they're just inherent in every business, but you won't know that that's occurring until you've actually gone and sat down and mapped out the process, or at least documented it, right? Whether you want fancy process maps or doesn't really matter. It's more about going through and telling me what is the sequence of events and what are the issues against each of those. So how do you tackle that? Look, I think you could do it a number of ways. And there's so many tools, Lean Six Sigma being just one. How you then deploy that, and once you've come up with your solutions, what do you do with that? Well, then you've got a whole nother bunch of methodologies, right? Do we use Agile? Do we use Waterfall? Again, it's horses for courses, right? If you've got something where you're not quite sure where you're going and you need to test and learn, Agile's perfect, right? So software, where Agile was born out of is a great place for Agile because I actually don't know what my customer likes. And I don't know if my UI is perfect for them. And I don't know where there's going to be little buggy things that I've tested the hell out of this, but I'm not quite sure what the end user is going to feel. Right? And we have this problem ourselves. You look at this software for so long that you know where to go and you forget to put it through the eyes of a customer, right? So Agile is brilliant for that. But some projects where you know the end point, here's A, where we are today, here's B, where I need to get to tomorrow. I think it's unpopular to say these days, but the good old-fashioned waterfall is the best way to do it, right? Like map it out, build requirements, set a proper schedule, document things, right? It was seen as unnecessary overhead, and it probably was in areas like software or any other business where you're not quite sure what the customer wants. Mm-hmm. But when you've got that certainty about what you want to deliver, I'm sorry, nothing beats the old school project management ways, right? Just do it in the old school way. So look, long answer, but there's so many different tools. I think for me, it's knowing your process and then having the information and the intelligence over that process to then be able to make informed decisions. And if you can get those two things right, really probably won't matter what kind of methodology or way you go about it. You've got the insights and the information needed.
I'm curious to know, like you've worked with so many businesses, what have you implemented in yours? So in starting day one, what do you use? What software? What methodologies? How do you run it?
So we're a classic startup, right? We've got all of the usual startup stack of, the Google suite and everything else, right? But I think the big thing that we look to implement in our particular world is ensuring that we don't just build stuff for the end customer, that we build our own non-functional software. So simple things like deploying to a customer, right? You can do that by hand for so long. Yep. But then if you've got 100 customers and we've got an upgrade, well, how long is that going to take us to do by hand? Testing frameworks, things like that, for us, these are manual tasks that we have to do. Even things like, subscriptions in our tool. And when we first started, that was something that was very much here's your license for the year, and then we're going to have to remember in a year's time to go in and update this thing. So we've built that functionality. Now that's dual. It's both non-functional as far as helping us, but it is something that our customers will be able to use as well. So I think it's less about the stack that we use. Yeah, like the devs are using your standard GitHub and everything else, right? They're using all of the normal dev tools. But I think for us as an overall business, it's more about constantly looking at where our manual interventions are and how we can either streamline that, automate that, and then that has a halo effect for our customers, right? We're not tied up doing low value stuff. We're free to help them and work with them on how they can improve it, etc.
And what are you using to do that streamlining? Because you're a small business. Yeah, you're small.
Yeah, we're using our own tool,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So a lot of this
Thank
stuff
goodness.
is
Love
yeah.
hearing that.
So we use the day one tool,
Yeah.
right? Like just to get clear there, when we talk about
you've
the toolkit,
manipulated it and made it for what you need in your.
Well, ultimately we're a professional service,
Yeah,
right? We're
of
a
course,
software vendor that provides a service to customers. So our, any software vendor can use our software as well to help them with that whole process of, particularly enterprise software. This is not something you go and buy off a website and put a credit card in and there you go. There's your cloud version of this software. This requires implementation. Yeah. This requires contracts and things with an organization. So we were primed to use our own tool, right? So we use our own tool and then which gives us two benefits, right? One is that we are now on the other side of the fence. We're not the developers. We're like in a way the client, the customer now of our own tool.
Yep.
And then we can see where there's a lot of time being wasted in trying to update things, even little things like updating bugs across many platforms. How do you do that, right? What's the most efficient way to update that stuff? And so, I think just living and breathing the tool every day helps you. And like my business partner and I are constantly on calls about, I think we could do this better. I don't like clicking through these. There's too many click-throughs. I don't like it, right? So it's just this constant evolution. We're always evolving it.
That's great. Yeah, that's really important, I think. And the amount of people, though, that probably wouldn't be using their own tool because it's not suitable for them. They've built it for someone else. But that's great that you've got that ability to do that. I want to know as well, I know you said you've got your stack, but talk me through what you're using in terms of like from the end to end, what you're using with day one.
So we start with our tool, right? So if you think the end-to-end operations, we've got it's Salesforce, right? So you start with all of the information and the power of Salesforce. We push that through sort of a pipeline management part of our software, which enables you to then sort of take a prospect to some sort of potential opportunity or deal. That deal will go through sort of its normal stages and we can map those really visually or in reports or things like that. And then when it gets to the proposal, literally we are using the same tool we sell to our customers. We will build up our proposals. We'll work out licenses. We'll work out what implementation costs are. That all gets worked up in the tool. And then when it gets executed, we all have to go in and type in our time or, establish what licenses have actually been sold to the customer to bill them appropriately. And then that flows through the billing engine and back end Xero for us. So, so we literally live and breathe the same sort of operating model that we then promote to our customers.
Love that. That's great.
I would say, in summary, the big key takeaway from what I've learned in this discussion is that you have to intimately understand the processes that are involved in how you run your business. From there, make sure you have a robust CRM that can accommodate whatever workflow it is that you need to run and deliver whatever services you're providing to your customer. I love that. I've always liked the idea. There's a lot of training organizations out there that focus a lot on process. And I think we'd all be surprised like how little attention people actually offer to the process, like researching into it and how scary it is. Like a lot of people don't even want to look at the feedback loops. You know what I mean? They're kind of like afraid what they'll find. They're in their head. They're like, no, this should be good. This should be good. And you might find out the customer, we hate this. Back to the drawing board, reconfigure and everything. But yeah, I love that the system actually provides you with a realistic means of managing an organization. This is one of those conversations where I was like, I wish I had this on the board. You can actually just show me this. I don't know if I actually have seen that, but maybe we could do that offline after the call.
We can.
Yeah, I'd love to as well. Yeah.
Last question that we always want to end these conversations with. Is there any piece of software that if you were either starting your business right now or someone is going to be starting their business, and I feel like I know what they're going to say, or you're going to say, that you feel that they need to have, brand or otherwise?
Oh, look, it'll be a shameless plug, but I think our software, right? No, but like to be more generalist in my answer, I think you have to think broadly, right? And how you are going to tie together all of the different functions within your operations to overcome the data silos, or, the throwing of a deal over a walled garden kind of effect, where the person about to receive it hasn't seen anything, doesn't know what's coming. Whoop, over it comes. It's over the wall now. I better deal with it. So just having that view of how you piece together all these pieces. Now, we do that. And, there are other ways that you can do that. So I think my advice would be, though, don't just think the vertical slithers.
Yep.
Think how horizontally this thing all ties together. And there is great software out there that does lots of these little functional bits. But if you don't tie it all together, you're not getting the benefit, right? Like, that's just the stark reality. You will not get anywhere near the benefits you think you're going to get from having this software. So for me, to give a less shameless plug answer, it's that horizontal integration and how everything ties together, and that how technology does that for you rather than relying on people to manually move information, right? Like, these professional services is not a physical product, it's an information product, right? So that movement of information is so critical in these businesses, and that would be the one piece of advice I would give to any sort of starting organization.
And is there a product, though, as passionate as you are about like Excel, that you would recommend to someone else to make sure that they run their business effectively?
Look, I think there's no one product. No, I wouldn't be able to call out one product that for me is the thing that you must all have, right? Because I think it's very reliant on what organization you're in, what industry you're in, what service you're providing. If it's analytics, then you better have Excel, right? But if you're in a legal environment, for instance, then, you will have a different set of tools that you need. So I think, no, for me, it is very much it is more that meta view, which is no one piece of software, but how all of these functional bits talk to each other, for me, is really the important thing.
Yeah, is your process and how they...
Yeah, that process and how it all links together.
Yeah, that's great. Love that. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you'd like to cover?
I think you've covered all of the key topics really well.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's been a great conversation. I love just like you pique my interest in something. I want to know more about that. So sometimes we go on our tangents, but yeah, if there's anything else that you want to cover, you can do that. Otherwise, tell our audience where they can find you.
You can find us at https / you know the stuff, day1, one word, .software.
And yourself in particular, can they find you on LinkedIn?
Get me on LinkedIn, yeah, or contact me via the email details on our webpage. We'd be more than happy to talk to anyone who's interested.
And it's Mark Layzelle.
Mark Layzelle, that's right.
Beautiful. Excellent. Thank you so much, Mark. It's been amazing chatting with you today.
Been great.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you
really
very
enjoyed
much.
It.
No worries. Perfect.
Megan, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the Tech Panel. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay connected. A big thank you to our major sponsor, TraffTrack, for powering today's episode, and join us again on the next episode of the Tech Panel, where tech minds meet.